I'm going to say something that's an amendment to previous things, and it's something that obviously is fluid and can change, and I'm sure there'll be all kinds of pronouncements later in the season, because why not, along these same lines. But beating Maryland is the most important game Wisconsin might have all season. I'm not sure if that's going to wash over you as ridiculous, profound, or eminently common sense, but it's a fact. I'm gonna really briefly get into why I believe this to be the case. In the meantime, like and subscribe. The PJ Flex show, who recently featured a trained gopher trying to juggle on a unicycle, which does sound kind of interesting now that I think about it, now that I say it out loud, has been beating us, edging ahead of us in the ratings game, and we need to put a stop to that. I want to beat PJ in the ratings game on YouTube as well as on the field. But getting back to my premise, I think the overwhelming majority of Wisconsin fans had treated the Maryland Terrapins as a speed bump, a sure win, a gimme coming into the season. It probably as much because of the difficulty of the other teams that Wisconsin faces as any sort of detailed analysis of how good Maryland might be. And I am not here telling you I think Maryland is a juggernaut. I don't think so. I don't think they are. They've done nothing in the 3 games they've played this season that would lead me to believe that this is a Big Ten contender of any merit. But they haven't looked terrible. I can say that. This is I think reasonable to presume this is going to be a better Maryland team than the one we saw last year, which was a disaster class outside of a very gutsy Billy Edwards Jr. led win over the USC Trojans. So here's the scenario, and here's why I'm saying what I am saying. Yes, in the traditional sense, since we were presuming Maryland was a win over Minnesota or Iowa or Illinois or one of the rivals, obviously huge. A win over Ohio State, we can now click Alabama off that list, or Oregon, or at Michigan, because the stature of their programs, gigantic. But sometimes how important a win is defined by how bad a loss is. And I'm going to say this not because I think this is what the result is going to be, but because it is in the realm of possibility. A Wisconsin loss to Maryland this Saturday would be the worst Wisconsin loss, however it comes to be, of the Fickell era by a wide margin. And probably the worst and most impactful Wisconsin loss since Wisconsin was a really good team back in 2019. I mean, I had to double check and make sure this one was even going to be on television. I mean, so these are 2 very lightly regarded, bottom of the Big Ten in perception, kind of squads going head to head in an 11 a.m. game. I mean, my God, I'm having the shivers just thinking about how empty that student section is going to be at kickoff. And that's a show that is going to be coming up. I did a show on it a couple of years ago, but I'm going to do a follow-up show on why it's not the students, it's the Wisconsin Athletic Department and their decision makers that is to blame for that debacle based on the process of adding those kids to the stadium. There's going to be some late ones, guys, but making it a single file, row by row process where kids have to wait in line for over an hour, that ain't it, buddy. But that's not today's battle. Today's battle is the Maryland Terrapins. This isn't going to be an analysis of who's going to win, how they're going to win, what it's going to look like. You don't need that from me. Obviously, the big binary here, does Billy Edwards Jr. play against his former squad? Are we sticking with Danny O'Neill? Let me lay one thing out here I feel very confident about. If the coaching staff believes that Billy Edwards Jr. is physically able to play in this game, he is going to start that game. There is no quarterback controversy. I can assure you of that. There is nothing and Danny's a tough kid. I like him. So I like the cut of his jib. That sounds weird out of context, but he's a player. He's a gamer. Plays hard, tough, well prepared, good effort, good locker room guy. There's a reason Danny O'Neil was the number 2 from the second he came on campus and never seriously challenged Billy Edwards Jr. That's because Billy Edwards Jr. is the starter. He's more talented, further along in his development, stronger, taller, better arm. The kind of things that you look for in a quarterback if you're trying to win games. And there was a poll that came out for Bucky's fifth quarter yesterday. And yes, I understand it's an internet poll. We're not saying this is scientific. This is not, the standard that we'd be using for an election or something like that. But I believe it was 74% of Wisconsin fans think there's a quarterback controversy if Billy Edwards Jr. is healthy. I'm going to go on a limb here, guys. And by limb, I mean I'm not at all. There's no quarterback controversy if Billy Edwards Jr. is healthy. Now, if he comes in and his performance isn't good, that could be something that happens. But there's no player this season that would make there a quarterback controversy. So take that out of your mind for now. Okay. Danny O'Neil might be starting this game because Billy Edwards Jr. is not there physically. I don't know that. Which coaches are being a little cagey about it. And frankly, if I'm Billy Edwards Jr., I've seen that offensive line. I'm not sure that I want to get out there, but that's where we are on it. But getting back to the game, if Wisconsin beats Maryland, and they're favored, I believe, by a touchdown and a half right now, and they should beat Maryland, if they are who we think they are. And that's a wide range of who they think they are. So they're anywhere from like a team that's like last year's team to a team that has improved. Either way, these are the kind of game you got to win. They win. They're 3-1. With this daunting, horrible schedule still facing them, but you're where people expected you to be. How they got there, we can quibble about. But when people looked at that schedule, the vast majority of fans and pundits saw a 3-1 squad. You're gonna win the first 2. You're gonna lose at Bama. You're gonna beat Maryland, and you're gonna go forward. So you're simply checking the boxes of what you are supposed to have been doing and what you were expected to do. But the flip side, if you lose the game to Maryland, and very clear, this is not a prediction show. I am not predicting that. That's a touchdown. That's a touchdown game, guys. Touchdown games can go either way. If Wisconsin loses to Maryland, this low hum, I think you could say it's more than a hum, that has been going on about Luke Fickell and the direction of the program, it's certainly amplified after every game this season. It was screamed after Alabama. It is going to be a gigantic, throbbing boil on this program if they drop to Maryland. It is going. It is. Let's see. It's not a worst case scenario because a worst case scenario would come later in the season with the games they have. But what I am telling you is, without any hesitation or equivocation, it would be a disaster class. They'd be sitting at 0-1 in the Big Ten, 2-2, with by far the toughest part of its schedule still facing it. And the questions about whether Luke Fickell and his staff are qualified to be guiding the Badgers would be absolutely like throbbing and and loud and screaming, and the questions wouldn't be crazy. I'm sure there would be massive hyperbole, but it would still be bad and justifiably so. So when I reevaluate this schedule and talk about the most important games, we forgot about this one, but I'm going to say it is. I mean, if you tell me Wisconsin loses to Maryland and then they can still beat Ohio State, okay, I might take that trade. But the reality is, this is as must win as it gets. This is more must win than the rivalry games, and it's a must win that we totally forgot about and didn't even think about. And I'm not saying that you have to. Wisconsin should win this game, but it's not guaranteed. If you're asking me to pick a winner, I'm picking Wisconsin. If I see someone taking Maryland this game, I might get it, at least where we are right now. We may look back on this game later, depending on how the season goes, and say, how could Wisconsin have even been only a touchdown favorite in this game? They're so much better. Not sure there's a long line for that position, but it's possible. But I will make no bones about this. If Wisconsin loses to the Terrapins this Saturday at Camp Randall, that next week, and probably a lot longer than that week, is going to be the longest, most brutal, most horrific in Luke Fickell's tenure, as far as the questions he'll have to answer. And there would be more than a hum calling for his firing if he loses to Maryland. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, and he's not going to be, by the way, if that happened. But tough times in Madison. There was a pundit this week who came out with his hot seat list, and Luke Fickell was on there, and I pushed back pretty stridently about that, not because of the concept that Fickell has accomplished everything that people wanted him to accomplish. It's just, as of this moment, he is not even close to being on a hot seat, if for no other reason, his incredible contract and the money still owed him, and some of the circumstances, which I got into in my last podcast, that have led him to be where he is. This guy has had his starting quarterback for a quarter and a half of the last 15 games. And the season before that, he had his starting quarterback for 30% of the Big Ten season. That's just some bad luck, guys. And you could say, well, they're just real good coaches find a way. Well, in the NIL era, when you have a certain amount of money to spend on a quarterback and you blow it all on one dude, and that's after everyone has already picked the bone, after the Fernando Mendozas get paid and go to Indiana, things like that, you sort of need that guy to be there for you. So when Tyler Van Dyke went down last season and Wisconsin was forced to rely on, some might argue, was the worst starting quarterback in the Big Ten the rest of the way, that's a big deal. I have posited that is a bowl team, probably a 7-win team, if they have Tyler Van Dyke the entire season last year. Badgers win 7, go to a bowl game, there's no Fickell Death Watch. There can be some people quibbling and having some questions about the direction when you got a couple 7-win seasons piled on each other, but no one's talking about bottom of the Big Ten disaster class. But that's the difference. But anyway, just wanted to do a little aside there, but getting back to this game, must win. The most important game on Wisconsin's schedule is Maryland. Let's get that W, Wisconsin, or it's going to be a very, very long and horrific week after. Scary Alvarez is out.